Lonzo got hurt. It was a torn meniscus. The press release that the Bulls put out when he had the surgery, which is at the end of January, they were saying a 6 to 8 week recovery time. I always say that there's no such thing as minor knee surgery.
NBA training camp is right around the corner, which is phenomenal news for us as basketball fans. But at the same time, there is a very pivotal moment for the Chicago Bulls, as one of their key players' careers is in potential jeopardy. This player is so important to the Chicago Bulls that, in my opinion, he's the difference between them being a force in the Eastern Conference with a ton of depth, or a team that makes it to the NBA playoffs and then has to exit via a gentleman's sweep against the defending champions. So before we get to the content, we are still running NBA 2K23 giveaways on my Twitter account, and we're dropping codes on my Instagram account as well. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? I will admit I have a huge soft spot for Lonzo Ball. I don't know if it's the fact that he went to UCLA, which is my alma mater, the fact that I feel like he's had one of the most interesting starts to his career out of any basketball player since quite possibly LeBron James. I mean, think about it. How many basketball stars do you know who come out with their own signature shoe prior to them even entering the NBA, which, although that shoe was very controversial, it's still something he did despite the quality of the shoe, had his own reality show before making it into the NBA, which also featured his little brother LaMelo when he was just 15 years old, and then gets drafted to become the golden boy of the Los Angeles Lakers, a player that they admired so much so that they looked at D'Angelo Russell and essentially added him on to a salary cap dump of Timofey Mozgov to the Brooklyn Nets, which to this day is something that still has never sat with me right. You even have Magic Johnson looking at Lonzo Ball during his press conference introduction and saying these words:
"Just leave me 1 or 2 records, okay? That's it. You know, all right, don't break all my records."
Imagine if one of the greatest, if not the greatest point guard, at least in regards to sharing the ball and basketball IQ in NBA history, or at the very minimum, if you want to argue with me about Magic Johnson's greatness, at the very minimum, the greatest point guard in the Los Angeles Lakers history, looks at you and says, "Hey, don't break too many of my records." Talk about some pressure. Ultimately, that wasn't the player that Lonzo Ball would become. As a matter of fact, a lot of people looked at Lonzo Ball's rookie season and were incredibly disappointed with him as a player. I mean, how could you be destined for greatness when you're averaging 36% from the field, 31% from 3, and are turning the ball over 2.6 times per game? Regardless, the potential for Lonzo Ball was there. And although in year 2 with the Los Angeles Lakers, he saw marginal improvements to his three-point percentage, although his scoring went down, quite possibly because LeBron James joined the team. We really began to see Lonzo Ball's dedication to the game of basketball once he got traded to the New Orleans Pelicans. I mean, Lonzo definitely carved an identity for himself as, hey, maybe he is not going to be a superstar in the league. Maybe he might not even be an all-star in the league. Maybe his career is that of a fringe all-star / super role player that does everything you'd like a point guard to do. A point guard with a remarkable basketball IQ that brings effort and energy on the defensive end and will always make the correct basketball play. An individual that works tirelessly to improve at other facets of his game, which I think is why he may someday become an all-star, and is obsessed with his craft. It was this obsession that resulted in Lonzo completely recreating his jump shot that looked weird as hell when he was a member of the Los Angeles Lakers to one of the more smooth looking jump shots in the NBA. I cannot state how difficult that is. I mean, in 2012, we would make fun of Michael Kidd Gilchrist for his jump shot. It was something that he was never able to get over throughout his career. More recently, we constantly make fun of Ben Simmons for his inability to shoot threes and how unstoppable he'd be if he actually took the time to improve his jumper from 3. And here you have Lonzo Ball Ball, an individual with one of the weirdest and ugliest shooting forms in NBA history, completely recreating every facet of his jump shot just so he could become that much better as a basketball player. And the ultimate reward was given to him. His three-point percentage bumped up to 38% in his first year with the New Orleans Pelicans. He averaged 12 points per game, 7 assists per game, and he improved his box plus minus to 0.6, his value over replacement player to 1.3, and established himself as a do-it-all point guard that you would want on your team that would set up his teammates for success. It was this reputation that Lonzo Ball established for himself that convinced the Chicago Bulls to sign him to a 4-year, $80 million contract. And initially, it worked wonderfully. Lonzo Ball played in 35 games for the Chicago Bulls. In those games, the Chicago Bulls were one of the breakout stories of the NBA, a team that nobody expected to have this much success behind the energy that Lonzo Ball brought to the court and DeMar DeRozan's near MVP campaign, at least towards the beginning of the season, in addition to Nikola Vucevic hitting his stride, Alex Caruso bringing the energy that they signed him to do so, and when Zach LaVine returned, he was everything as advertised. This team shocked a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference. Again, with Lonzo Ball, they had a 22-13 record. Without Lonzo Ball, they went 24-23 and eventually lost 4-1 to the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round of the NBA playoffs. An incredibly disappointing end to their season, especially considering the fact that Lonzo Ball was injured. Lonzo Ball's injury was something that wasn't supposed to be a big deal. All we knew was he had a knee injury and he was going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks. Little did we know that he was going to miss the rest of the season, let alone the NBA playoffs. Now, recently, it just got a lot worse, as Lonzo Ball is now doubtful for training camp. This has been a cause of a lot of drama for the Chicago Bulls and the Ball family. As a matter of fact, as early as May of last year, Lonzo Ball's controversial father blamed the Chicago Bulls for Lonzo Ball's progress or lack of progress towards his injury. This was in May. Things get a little bit more intense as time progresses forward. You might be wondering, how did we even get here? Well, to give you the full story, on January 19th, Lonzo Ball's coach said that Ball's left knee was not responding to the team's initial treatment plan. This resulted in Lonzo Ball requiring arthroscopic surgery following an initial period of rest and targeted intervention. He would get the surgery a week later, and then during a video produced by the team, Lonzo Ball would be shown lifting weights and running on the court at the team practice facility and would say he's feeling pretty good. Obviously, it's a slow process, and I definitely want to get back on the court as soon as possible. Because 9 days later, Lonzo Ball would tell the Chicago Bulls that he's experiencing discomfort while running. So the Bulls announced that they'll pull back on Ball's rehab process, which would push him past the initial timeline. This would result in Lonzo Ball restarting the rehab process, and then in April of 2022, the Chicago Bulls would rule out Lonzo for the rest of the 2021 to 2022 season and playoffs. And in a news release, the team says that he is still experiencing pain with high-level physical activity. During his exit interview, Lonzo Ball would say that his knee recovery is at a standstill, and it's obviously something that needs to be addressed this summer. A lot more leg workouts as opposed to probably upper body. I'm going to work with the doctors and strength coaches and do what I've got to do to get healthy. LeVar Ball would tell NBC Sports Chicago that he was upset with the fact that his son began running so quickly after surgery, which is what we mentioned a little bit earlier. LeVar said that he's going to be fine. Here's the thing, Zoe's going to do whatever it takes for him to do what he's got to do. When they did the meniscus tear a long time ago, they just tried to let it heal. They should have cut that out the first time so he wouldn't have to go back in there and then ends up tearing it again. Lonzo would have to undergo surgery in late January to repair a small meniscus tear in his left knee, which forced him out for the season after being unable to ramp up his rehab due to discomfort in his knee, which is what LeVar had issues with. After they do the surgery on his leg, I'm looking and I'm like, yo, they've got him running and stuff too fast. It was too early for him to do that. He should have been doing some pool therapy instead of the treadmill or the running he was doing. That was wrong. On June 23rd of 2022, on the night of the NBA draft, Bulls general manager Mark Eversley said that the Chicago Bulls performance staff is working with Ball and Ball's trainers on his rehab in Los Angeles. When asked whether Ball would be ready for training camp, Eversley says that he certainly hopes so. This brings us all the way to where we are now. Because according to the Chicago Bulls, Lonzo Ball is now expected to miss the start of training camp and is doubtful for the start of the NBA season. So what was initially ruled a 6 to 8 week injury might be a 9-month to 1-year injury. The article mentions that Bulls guard Lonzo Ball is expected to miss training camp and is doubtful for the start of the regular season because of lingering pain and discomfort following meniscus surgery on his left knee in January. You know what's kind of ironic about all of this is Zion Williamson went through something very similar in his rookie year. He had surgery on his right meniscus, and ultimately the New Orleans Pelicans proceeded with caution. It took some time for him to finally be able to work towards his rookie debut during the 2019 to 2020 NBA season. But there's some positive news about all this. While a source reiterated that Ball's knee is structurally sound while he underwent arthroscopic surgery on January 28th, he continued to experience pain while attempting basketball activities as he spent the summer rehabbing in Los Angeles. So here's where we stand right now. Lonzo Ball will undergo an arthroscopic debridement of his left knee next Wednesday, and he'll be reevaluated in 4 to 6 weeks. So much for his knee being structurally sound, because it seems like they're going to go back in there to see what the hell is going on. So now Lonzo Ball remains in limbo. You don't know when he could return. Definitely not going to be the start of the regular season. Hopefully we can get an update in October or November, and hopefully we get some positive progress in regards to this situation. Needless to say, this is an absolute nightmare for any athlete whatsoever. I can only imagine knowing how dedicated Lonzo Ball is to his craft. An individual that was able to boost his 3-point percentage a whole 12% throughout his career, which is absolutely unheard of and remarkable if you think about it. I can only imagine how much he is agonizing over the fact that he can't improve his game and return to the court. Hopefully we get some good news soon, but if you're a Chicago fan, let me know what you guys think about all this. How do you feel about Lonzo Ball's injury, and do you think he can return sooner rather than later? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.